He found her barely breathing on the side of a deserted road, a mother left to die after her son was taken. The man behind it? Her ex, cruel, confident no one would come looking, hiding deep in a place where even the law kept its distance. But John Marlowe, a poor cowboy with nothing left to lose, decided this time would be different, and took justice into his own hands. But just wait until you see how this story turns, and why justice, in the end, didn't just knock. It kicked the door wide open. In the edge of Texas, where the land stretches out like an old sigh, and the wind whispers secrets no one listens to anymore, there lived a man named John Marlowe. He wasn't a hero, not the kind that walked into town with spurs jingling and a rifle slung across his back. John was the forgotten kind, the kind of man you pass by without remembering. He wore a battered hat that had seen too many seasons, boots held together with duct tape and dry hope, and a faded denim jacket that smelled like horse and wood smoke. Once upon a time, he ran a modest ranch, a patch of stubborn earth passed down from his father, with cattle and a few good acres of grazing land. But time isn't always kind. The rain stopped coming. The grass withered. Then his father passed, and with him went the last piece of John's fire. After that, the bank came knocking. Then the power company. Then silence. He stayed. Not because he had nowhere else to go, but because leaving would have meant admitting defeat. And John Marlowe, for all he'd lost, still had pride, the quiet, ragged kind. In town, he was a punchline with boots. At Big Jack's Tavern, men laughed over cheap beer. John couldn't even save his cow, far less a woman. Yeah, reckon if trouble came, he'd tip his hat and run. They didn't mean it cruel, not really, but they said it loud enough for him to hear. That evening, as the sun bled gold and rust across the sky and the wind turned dry as paper, John rode his old mare down a cracked and lonely stretch of highway. Her name was Betty. She limped now, favoring the right leg, but she was faithful, and in John's world that counted for more than most things. Then he saw her, a shape, crumpled, still. At first he thought it was a sack of clothes, something tossed from a passing truck. But Betty shifted, snorted, and John slowed. The silhouette took form, a woman barely moving. She lay by the roadside, her dress torn at the seams, one sleeve soaked in something dark and drying. Her lips were cracked, cheeks hollow. She looked sunburned, windburned, like someone who'd been running and ran out of road. No car, no bag, no phone, no footprints, just her and the desert. John slid off Betty without a word, knees aching as his boots met the dirt. He knelt beside her, unscrewed his canteen, and gently tipped it to her mouth. She sipped once, twice, then coughed. Her voice came out dry, like a leaf curling in flame. "My son," she whispered. "They took my son." Her eyes rolled back. Her body went limp. And just like that, John Marlowe, a man the world had forgotten, found himself alone on the edge of nowhere, holding the weight of someone else's story. And for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel empty. John carried the woman across the dry canyon floor like she weighed no more than memory. His arms trembled not from her weight, but from what she represented, someone broken like him. Betty followed slowly behind, her hooves crunching loose gravel as dusk melted into night. He brought her to the only place he called home, a weather-worn one-room bungalow tucked between two crumbling cliffs. It had no electricity, just the warm flicker of a kerosene lamp perched on a crate. The windows were draped with old blankets to keep out dust and moonlight. The air smelled faintly of cedar smoke and rain that hadn't fallen in months. John gently laid her on the cot, took off his coat, and used it as a blanket. Then he knelt beside her, pulling out the old tin box where he kept gauze, a pair of rusted scissors, and a half-used bottle of antiseptic. He worked in silence. His hands weren't trained for this, but they were careful. She stirred only once, wincing when the cold gauze touched her skin. He didn't say anything, just kept working. When her eyes finally opened, the lamp cast soft shadows across her face. Her lips parted. "You saved me," she said, voice hoarse. "I just didn't leave you there," John replied, setting down the cloth. "Doesn't make me a hero." She looked around the room, confused at first, then gripped the edge of the cot. "My son, where's my boy?" John leaned forward, listening. "My ex found us," she whispered. "He said he would never let me go. I was trying to make it out of state, find somewhere safe, and then he was just there, took my son, left me by the road." She looked at John, her face pale and bruised by sun and sorrow. "You don't even know me," she said, almost in disbelief. "Why are you doing this?" John leaned back in his chair, let out a long breath, then looked out the window into the dark. "Because I know what it feels like to be left behind," he said quietly. "When my dad passed, nobody showed up. My brother took the land, told me I was dead weight. Folks who used to shake my hand wouldn't even look me in the eye anymore. I've spent years watching people give up on others, on themselves, but not tonight." He poured a bowl of canned soup, slid it toward her, and waited while she took a sip with shaking hands. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ellie," she said. "Ellie James." John nodded. "Where would he take your son?" Ellie hesitated, her fingers curled tightly around the edge of the blanket. "There's a trailer park," she said slowly, "by the river. It's quiet. Folks don't go there unless they have a reason. And the law doesn't go at all." John didn't flinch, just stood across the room and opened the footlocker at the base of his bed. Inside was a pump-action shotgun, dusty, unused for years, but clean. He picked it up, checked the action, and grabbed a handful of shells. Ellie sat upright, alarmed. "Please," she whispered, "you don't know what he's like. He's dangerous." John looked her in the eye. "No," he said, "but I know what boys need. They need someone who doesn't run when things get dark." He slid around into the chamber with a soft click and set the shotgun down gently by the door. Then he grabbed his coat and hat. "I ain't looking for trouble," he said over his shoulder, "but if he lays a hand on that kid, I'll be waiting." The night draped over the canyon like an old wool coat, heavy, silent, and hiding more than it revealed. The sky, starless, hung low. Even the crickets seemed to hush as John Marlowe rode toward the glow ahead. The trailer sat crooked near the bend in the river, a sagging box of tin and rust, windows glowing faintly yellow like tired eyes. Music hummed from inside, low and careless. It didn't know what was coming. John rode Betty slow, her hooves muffled by the dry dirt, her breath steady. He wore his father's coat, patched and faded. At his waist hung a loop of rope, a handful of shells, and the shotgun slung low. But it wasn't the weapon that made him dangerous tonight. It was the weight in his chest. The kind of weight men only carry when they're walking into something they can't walk back from. He didn't knock. With one swing of the shotgun's wooden stock, the side window burst inward. Shards clattered across the linoleum floor. Inside, a man spun around, startled, young, mouth already moving, hand darting for something tucked at his belt. John didn't wait. A single shot echoed like thunder trapped in a box. The man dropped hard, not lifeless, but done fighting. In the corner, a small voice cried out. John stepped inside, heart pounding in silence, and found the boy, knees pulled to his chest, face pale, eyes wide with fear. Behind him in the doorway, Ellie appeared, breath catching in her throat. John crouched low, easing the shotgun down. He reached for the boy gently, arms wide. "It's all right," he said, voice low, steady. "You're safe now." The boy stared a moment longer, then moved forward and collapsed into John's chest. He held him close, shielding him from the broken room, from the man still groaning on the floor, from everything. "Did he hurt you?" John asked softly. The boy shook his head. "You're a cowboy," the child whispered, clinging tighter, "like the ones in the movies." John looked at Ellie. Her eyes were glassed with tears. He nodded once. "Yeah," he said, "something like that." When the police arrived, drawn by Ellie's call, the scene was calm. No sirens, no shouting, just John sitting on the front steps of the trailer, the boy asleep in his lap, and the smoke from a hand-rolled cigarette curling up into the dark. He handed the weapon over without a word. No resistance, no explanation. He didn't need one. The next morning, the headline ran across local papers. Poor cowboy rescues woman and son in midnight standoff. But John didn't read it. He was back at the canyon bungalow, feeding the chickens, patching fence posts, boiling water on the wood stove. Ellie stood beside him now, sleeves rolled up. Her son chased the goats, laughing in the sun. They hadn't left, and every evening, as the light faded over the ridgeline and turned the hills gold, John would settle onto the porch, stretch his boots out over the rail, and hear the boy's voice ring out like a bell. "Dad, show me the lasso trick again." And John would smile. He'd rise slowly, grab the rope, and let it spin through the dusk. He'd been the town's joke, a shadow in the saloon, a name nobody remembered. But now, in the eyes of one boy, in the quiet of one home, under one endless sky, he was a legend. Not because he wanted to be, but because one night, when no one else would, he stood up. And the world changed.